There's a funny thing I've seen with trauma. Everyone seems to think that theirs is the worst, like no one's ever had it as bad as they've had it. We hear different generations say things like, kids these days, they don't know what it's like. They don't know what I went through when I was their age. Trauma and the ways that I reacted to it, mostly poor, has defined most of my life. In fact, I have survived 3 suicide attempts in my lifetime, and 4 if you count my 18-year drug addiction. My trauma actually began before I was born. My story starts with the sexual abuse of my mom and my stepdad as they were children. I was born to teen parents. My mom was 18 and my dad was 19. My real dad left before I turned 1, and my mom turned to the streets to try to make ends meet. At the age of 2, I was hospitalized because I had ingested garden insecticide. And at one point, my heart stopped beating and I thought I had died. The story goes like this. I escaped my crib in the middle of the night. I walked down the hallway. I opened up the childproof lock on the cabinet under the sink. I opened up the childproof lock on the bottle of poison, and I drank it. And then I walked back down the hall to my mom's room, and I told her I drank some Pepsi under the sink and I didn't feel good. Apparently you didn't know, I'm the smartest 2-year-old that ever lived. However, I've lived my entire life convinced that my mom tried to kill me that day. Shortly after that incident, my mom eventually met my stepdad. They were both active drug addicts, and my childhood was one of constant fighting and yelling. I'll never forget coming home from visiting my aunt and uncle, and there was a gunshot hole in our TV. My mom had her hand sewn to her stomach because she grabbed the end of the shotgun barrel that was pointed at her. Turns out my mom's a superhero in her own regard. One particular fight stands out in my mind that led to my stepdad being arrested for the first time I can remember. And the next day I became a victim of my mom's pain. She made me pack everything I owned, which was mostly toys at that time, into 2 brown paper grocery bags. She was going to take me to the orphanage and drop me off because she didn't love me anymore. I ruined her life. She hated me. With enough begging and crying on my part, she decided to keep me. I was in 2nd grade at the time, and I couldn't have been more than 7 years old. A year later, my mom got sober, but Dad didn't. The fights continued, we moved around a lot, and I could never find friends and really had no one other than my grandmother. All this led me to my first attempt at suicide. I was 10 years old and in 5th grade. I was an easy target to pick on at school. I was alone and malnourished, both physically and mentally. One day, 4 guys decided it would be fun to beat me up one day after school. In the middle of the beating I was taking, I got saved by another kid. Her name was Margaret. How embarrassing. At that moment, I remember feeling hopeless and alone, and I wanted nothing else but to die. My second attempt was 2 years later, in 7th grade. That was the day of the '89 earthquake that devastated the Bay Area. Still to this day, in my overinflated sense of self-importance, I looked at it as a sign from a higher power. Time went on and the fights continued. As I got older, I started to find my voice, and I began to insert myself into the abuse, eventually putting myself between Mom and Dad. This all culminated with me getting kicked out of the house at 16 years old after a physical altercation with my stepdad. At that moment, I knew I was not loved by the people that were supposed to love me unconditionally. I'd spent my entire life to that point, trying to be the best little boy that I could and trying to prove that I was worthy of being loved. I spent the next 18 years of my life in addiction. I did any drug and any drug I could get my hands on. I put myself into countless high-risk situations where I could have easily lost my life. This is why I consider this my 3rd attempt at suicide. I did everything in life I was supposed to. I got a career, I got a house, got a wife, white picket fence, dogs, the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, I truly didn't care if I lived or died. I was a high-functioning train wreck. Whoop, whoop. And this is how I lived my life, until one night I was sitting in my cold garage, in the dark, with a gun in my hand. And I thank God for not going through with what I had intended to do, because obviously He had different plans for me. It was about 6 months after that when I found the rock bottom I'd been searching for 19 years. My marriage had gotten purely toxic. We were both using meth at that point and cheating on one another. I'd been up for 4 or 5 days. That morning, April 18th, 2012, changed my life forever. I was arrested for charges of domestic violence for assaulting my wife in front of my 5-year-old daughter. I did the one thing that I swore I would never do. The thing my parents did to me. I passed on generational trauma to my daughter. Sobering up in prison was the worst. I was sick to my stomach thinking about everything that I had done. I got myself released after a little more than a week, and I checked myself into a 30-day inpatient program. Turned out I needed 90 days because I was that messed up. After getting out and getting back to society and back to work, the next 6 months was euphoria. I was married to sobriety. It was the greatest honeymoon experience I've ever had. Eventually, though, I came to realize it wasn't the drugs that was the problem. It was my trauma and the way I'd been avoiding it. I started going to therapy, and I found a female therapist I could connect with and open up to. I spent the next 10 years rebuilding my life through therapy, learning how to love that little boy that no one loved, learning how to love myself, and truly learning how to love others. I got remarried to an angel that worked with me through my own counseling and couples counseling. There have been a number of times that I got to the end of the road with a therapist and I thought, I'm good, but then something new would come up and I'd have to start all over and explore a whole other path. I know now that this will be my path for the rest of my life. I will always have to look for opportunities to grow and heal. And thank God I found myself in a position that I can use my story to help others. And my hope is that I will inspire others to find strength in their story.